Hi, everyone. This is your girl, Nikita, and welcome to the Perfectly Powerful You podcast. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Perfectly Powerful You podcast. This is your host, Nikita, and we're trying something new today. I have blurred background, and I'm slowly learning just little tips and tricks on making this more aesthetic, more appealing, and more in alignment with the growth that I am encouraging myself to do. So, blurring the background. We'll see how we love. It might stay, it might not, but that is okay because we're trying something new and I'm here for newness and always just the fun and play of the experiment that is life. I trust, hope, and expect that you are all doing fan-freaking-tastic today. It is a glorious day. I'm here in Kamloops for the Easter weekend. When you guys are listening to this or watching this, it is probably a couple weeks past due. However, as I'm recording this, because I'm being ahead of schedule, I am enjoying the quiet calm that is Kamloops, the beautiful, sagey semi-desert that is Kamloops, and really enjoying being back here. It is definitely far from being in the tropical or rather temperate rainforest that I am used to, but I am thoroughly enjoying being with family and friends and enjoying some peace and quiet. And on the topic of peace and quiet, we're talking all about forgiveness today. I really, really, really love this topic because I think that it is a very important thing to develop practice, or rather, forgiveness as a daily practice because it is something that just as we all want to be forgiven and we all want to know that people don't hold resentment or judgment over ourselves, that we can also offer the same to not only ourselves but to others as well, because we're all on this planet, we're all just experiencing life, and I think that many of us think that we or just have it all figured out, or maybe not. I know that myself, I up until now operated on a paradigm of perfection, that I felt as though in a lot of situations that over my better judgment, I felt as though I had to show up perfectly, that in every situation that I had to present myself where people would see me in a certain way where they're like, there's goes Nikki, she's such like a Sally Sunshine, like here she goes just enjoying her life and always making sure that she's taking care of everybody. And I realize now that holding myself to a standard like that can feel a little bit constricting, because I think that, well, again, we're just in this beautiful experiment called life, that we don't always show up skillfully. And even though we would love to be able to just have these wonderful expectations that we're all going to get along most of the time, that we can all hold space for each other most of the time, that we can just like get along and enjoy each other's company. And even with those we love, especially those we love, that maybe when we have a certain expectation about how we expect people to show up in our life, maybe it's because of past experiences with them, or maybe just like our own perceptions about how we would love them to show up, how we perceive them, and then we kind of like make up little images in our head about how we would love them to continue to show up in our life. But sometimes, just as we don't always show up perfectly, neither does everybody else. And something that I've come to grow far more fond of is being able to see situations from multiple perspectives. And this takes rigor, it takes a lot of self love as well. Because I think that, a quote that really stands out for me is one by Buddah, where it's like, resentment and judgment and guilt is like holding a really hot coal. And maybe you've heard this before, that the like holding the hot coal, you're intending to throw it at the person because you think that they've wronged you in some way, and you want to throw it because you want them to feel the same hurt that by chance that they've done to you. But all the while, the person who gets most burned is, well, you. And I think it's a really beautiful metaphor for recognizing that no one will ever, and I'll say this again, always, always, that we're the only ones in our head. We're the only ones who are taking the action steps in service of our vision. We're the only ones who are living our life. And forgiveness as a practice is something that can take some rigor because, again, something that comes to mind is that we may not have to forgive the action of how people show up, no matter what it is. It might be something that has really, really triggered us, that has what felt like cut really deep into our core, where it feels like we've attributed that action to be coinciding with the person. Like that person is that action. Like they did that to me. They are the wrong person. I have no part of this. And because of that one thing that they did, they no longer deserve the love and forgiveness that, that I can offer them. But I think that, and I love thinking about this as well. So feel free if you'd love to try this on as well, that we don't have to forgive the action, but we can forgive the person. That just as we all want to know that there's been a time in our life that we haven't actually shown up very skillfully, and that we can hold maybe judgment and resentment over ourselves because there's something that came up when we lashed out at somebody that we really, it didn't feel in alignment with us. And we hold that guilt for ourselves. But that just as we want to know that someone else would forgive us for our own actions, because every action is a call or cry for love. We don't do things because we intentionally want to hurt people. Sometimes we do things because it's a pattern that we've known, that maybe the tools and the mindset that we have today, or maybe a few years from now, is nothing like who we were years ago or an hour ago, that we have self-awareness to be able to acknowledge that no, maybe how I showed up wasn't actually the way that I would love to continue to show up. But if someone holds it against you, it's like they continue to try to put you in a category or a box where maybe you don't feel like that person anymore. But when they continue to perpetuate that scenario, or maybe you continue to perpetuate that scenario in your head, it's like you continue to box yourself in a category, or they box you in a category that no longer feels in alignment with you. And it's literally like cutting yourself off from love. And judgment, guilt, and resentment are like on a lower frequency. Love and joy and prosperity and forgiveness are all the way up here. And resentment and judgment and wrongdoing is down here. Like they're not on the same level. So one cannot have love. They're basically, it's like putting Gandalf at the just barrier, saying you shall not pass. Because when one is saying that you do not deserve forgiveness, you do not deserve love, you must hold on to this guilt because this action that you've done has hurt and wronged me. So, from a standpoint of self forgiveness, where up until now, maybe there's been a feeling of judgment, self judgment, that an action that we've continued to repattern, that we've continued to live into, maybe we're recognizing it. And maybe we see this as something where it's, let me actually give an example, because it came up today and it seems very little in my retrospect now, but during this time, it actually felt really, really big to me because I was operating on a mindset of lack and scarcity. And this is how I showed up. So, a really, really good friend of mine, a very abundant, loving, and prosperous and generous friend of mine, we love giving each other gifts. And for a long time, there was actually a very big part of me because of the pattern of thinking that I grew up in was a lot of lack and scarcity. That whenever I'd go over to her house, especially for Christmas or birthdays or honestly any sort of holiday, there was always an abundant amount of gifts wrapped in like these beautiful frilly bows in really expensive wrapping paper. And when I say that it would fill up a room, it would fill up an entire room of just the abundant amount of gifts that her family accumulatively would be able to afford for one another. And while, like, when I would go over, there would be a part of me because I did not experience that same abundance in that specific form. I recognize now that abundance comes in so many different forms and it doesn't have to be in specifically gifts, but for them, like, that is how they showed their love. They showed it through being able to exchange their monetary forms of abundance for tangible gifts. And I think it is so beautiful. I take a lot of inspiration from it now, but I also recognize that there was a part of me that was operating in a lot of lack and scarcity. That when I would go over, I would compare myself to the fact that, oh, well, my family doesn't do that. I must not be as abundant as her because I'm seeing literally, like, it's right in front of my face, all of these gifts that I do not see in my life. And so, what came up recently is because since then we've moved away, but we still love to be able to treat each other and say, hi, like, I bought you a gift, I was thinking about you, sending it your way. And that's how we would just kind of, just still be in each other's lives and still be able to exchange this form of abundance to each other. So, at the level of fact, I felt as though my current, bank account, what the monetary forms of abundance that I have in my bank account did not show the same level of abundance that I felt inside. So there was kind of a discrepancy between my desire to give these elaborate gifts and show the same reciprocity as my friend does. And she would always, what felt like to me, go above and beyond. Like, her generosity really meets no bounds. It is just like she sees something and it doesn't take her very long to be able to, like, yes, I want that for, like, I'm thinking about Nikita. I'm thinking about how, like, I would love her to wear that or use that. And it's very easy for her to be able to, like, spend large amounts of money on me. And I'm really, really grateful. And I recognize that as love. And there was a part of me that, and this is where the self judgment came in, because at the level of fact, however many months ago or years ago, that there was a part of me that said, actually, your gift got lost in the mail, but there was no gift at all. And that ate away at me so much because there's a part of me that really wanted to express the same kind of love she showed for me in gift giving. But there was a part of me that it felt, and I felt far more comfortable just saying that, oh, it got lost in the mail, as opposed to saying, I chose not to spend money on you because I felt so much scarcity and lack that it was easier for me to say that it didn't come at all, as opposed to saying, I don't have it for you. And I kind of, like, put it off from me. But of course, like, revealing this to her today, because we did have a sit down conversation, and that guilt that I put on myself, that judgment, that resentment, that not only did I feel like I lied to her, but that I was like, well, Nikita, you preach abundance, you live into it every single day, that it is not what is physically in your life and your circumstances, but it's how you feel. And I recognize this now, and I live into it more and more every day, that regardless of the circumstances, abundance is a feeling. It is a feeling of having enough and then some. It's a feeling of being safe. It's a feeling of knowing that I can spend frivolously if I want, but I also choose not to because I love to live by a budget. But regardless of that, I held on to that for a very, very long time. And I recognized that love on the outside, to be able to be more receptive of love, I have to give it back to myself. And it may take a lot. It may take a lot of repatterning because our paradigms, they want to keep us down. They want to keep us at a certain level where we feel comfortable. And sometimes it can feel rigorous and very vulnerable to straight up say, I feel like I've done wrong. But the only person that was ever judging me, that was blocking me from the love that I know that I am deserving of, was me. Because at the level of fact, I didn't think I was deserving of receiving any more gifts from her, receiving love in general, receiving forgiveness. The way that, like, every time I came up, it kept me comfortable because I said, oh, I would really love to do this. I would really love to give her this gift. But then, like, that image that would pop into my head and say, but remember when you didn't actually give it to her and that you said that it existed, but it didn't, that you lied, that you just, like, all these different things that would come up in my head because I recognized that it was just a repeating pattern to be able to hold me away from love. And I didn't want to feel that way anymore. That I wanted to so badly live into even more abundance, but I couldn't do that unless I forgave myself and forgave myself and forgave myself and would keep continuing to forgive myself because sometimes it's not one and done. Sometimes forgiveness is over and over and over again to remind yourself that we may not always show up skillfully. Not even me, surprise, surprise. We're all just human. And that even though some things may feel so big in the moment, that, like, this feeling that I had inside me, this scarcity and lack that I was operating on, that caused me to take an action that current Nikki, like the Nikita that I know today, would easily spend money on a friend and would easily just straight up send it. And if I chose not to want to spend money, I could easily say, actually, I would love to be able to show my love in a different way. Would you be open and receptive to maybe instead of a gift, like something else that felt more in alignment with me? That maybe that circumstance says my bank account looks like a certain way. But if I would love to give a gift, I can. If I'd love to choose to save that money and put it towards something else, I know in my heart that the love that my friend feels for me is like, of course, like, gifts are fantastic. I love giving them. I love receiving them too, but please don't, like, put yourself out because you feel like it necessary to give me a gift. I know, and I hold my friend to such a high esteem that there was no one else judging me, not even her, except for myself. And so when we choose to allow ourselves to feel even more deserving of love, we remove that barrier. We are able to recognize where we are at today, give ourselves a little bump, little high five, little, like, go into a snake, go into fireworks, and just praise ourselves for recognizing that no, I actually didn't show up very skillfully, but no, I don't choose to judge or resent myself anymore for that action because I recognize and honor where my mind is now, but I also know why I chose to take that action step, that I wanted to feel safe with my own account, like my bank account. So I chose not to spend money because I felt as though by doing that, I would be even more in lack, which again, I recognize is like a, an opposite of what abundance means. That should I feel ever in lack, it means that abundance isn't real because, like, from abundance is scooped abundance is still more abundance remains. So to feel lack is the opposite of abundance, and it didn't feel in alignment with me. But I know that so much more within my spirit, within my heart, and it feels more solidified within me today. but it wasn't that solidified months ago, years ago, because I'm not the same person. And I think that we can all be able to turn that not only back on ourselves, but also to the world around us. That there are people who definitely do not show up very skillfully in anything. There are some things where we have expectations for people that they do not meet. And then maybe up until now, it could be a pattern for us to hold it against them, to say, well, I expected you to show up like this, and you are obviously not showing up like this. And now I'm feeling a little bit of judgment for how you showed up. I'm feeling a little bit of resentment for how you showed up because my expectation was maybe something different. But again, it's like you're holding the only person that is actually feeling that judgment, guilt, resentment is us. And every time maybe that person pops up in your head or that action that you did pops up into your head, the feeling you have, no one else is feeling that. It's only us. But again, that's okay because just as we're able to hold space for judgment, guilt, resentment, anxiety, shame, we can also hold the same amount of space for letting it go. Because when we continue to hold on to it, we're repeating that pattern and it keeps us low. It keeps us away from love. It keeps us away from the forgiveness that we are deserving of. Because all forgiveness is actually self-forgiveness. That every time there's someone who outside of us does something and we hold that, it all comes back to us because they don't actually feel it. They don't feel the same kind of anger or judgment that you feel towards it. It's actually just us. And when we're putting energy into all of these, I'm going to say lower frequency emotions, we no longer hold space for healing. We no longer hold space for growth. We no longer hold space for transformation because we're so wrapped up into maybe that one person at that one time in that one place and space, and we can keep repeating it over and over and over again. But when we put our energy into that, we remove, or rather, we redirect our energy towards something that is no longer part of something that can be far more beneficial. That when we hold on to resentment and judgment, we no longer see love. But love is always there. Love never leaves a place. It's just perspective that we can actually see a situation, we can see a person, we can actually see ourselves from that same maybe moment in time, that we can see it from a different perspective that removes the block that may have been there and can transform it into honoring the fact that we're all growing, all of us, at every single moment in time. Even when the growth may look different, even when the growth may look a little bit slower, maybe the growth doesn't even look like the growth is there at all, but it is always there because every single moment that we are living, we are given a chance over and over and over again to show up as a people that we would love to see. And that's why we hold to our vision, because the vision of the most successful version of Nikita, the most successful and most loving and generous and abundant and prosperous version of us knows that forgiveness is not only a choice, but it frees us. It's like we shackle ourselves, actually, different one, like a jail cell, that we put all these people, maybe even ourselves, in these jail cells, and we have to stand guard as the jailer because every jail cell, every prison needs a jail guard. And we, every single time we think about that person, event, place, ourselves, we put our energy into it as the jail guard. But we have to stand guard at the prison in front of those cells in order to make sure those people never get out of those cells, that they are reminded of the hurt that they have done us or other people, that they have shown up in a way and that you refuse to remove them from that. But again, that's just energy that if you choose to put them in that jail cell, if you choose to stand guard every single moment you remind yourself of that, then again, that's just more energy that you could be putting back into yourself, back into forgiveness and love that helps elevate yourself in so many different ways. That the frequency, like you can heal your body, you can heal your mind by allowing yourself to say, I recognize that I didn't show up very skillfully, that they did not show up very skillfully, but I choose to let go, knowing the only person inside my body that's feeling this is me. And I choose to actually take back my power, to take back my energy. And even though I may not want this person in my life anymore, that's okay. That you can say, I may not forgive that action. I may not want you to do that again. And that's okay. You don't have to agree with what they did. You don't have to agree with how you showed up, but you can still forgive yourself and you can still forgive them by knowing that just as we're all experimenting with life, with how we're choosing to interact with one another, that maybe we're operating in certain mindsets and maybe we have certain skills that we did not have, that we do now, that we're still learning, that we can be so freaking proud of them, if you want to go that far, or so proud of us for the awareness and the love that we can show ourselves, that we don't have to take that action anymore. We don't have to allow that person to be able to show up in that way, but we don't really control how they show up, but we can control how we show up. That maybe there's someone who continues to repeat an action that every single time you're like, why are you doing this? And that's okay. You don't have to be a part of that anymore. But you can still forgive the person saying, I recognize that you may be in a different place and space than I am right now, but it's also my choice to be in your space right now. And while I forgive you, every single time I forgive you, every single time that I recognize that you may not be on the same path as I am, but it's my choice to say, I forgive you anyways. I may not forgive the action, but I'm going to choose to walk away, or I'm going to choose to show up differently, or I'm going to choose to see this from a different perspective, offer you help if you'd love, or just recognize that it's part of our growth too. That maybe sometimes people are showing up in a certain way to help us with our higher growth. And that when people show up or when we show up in a certain way, it's because we're constantly transforming, that we're allowing, because forgiveness is huge. To be able to forgive yourself, to be able to forgive another for how they choose or chose to show up and still be able to offer them love and forgiveness, that's huge. That's amazing. That's transformative growth that you are offering to yourself, because again, all forgiveness is self-forgiveness, because you choose to let go of the judgment, you choose to let go of the resentment and hate, because we are all just trying and we're all just learning and we're all just wanting love. That every action always comes from a thought, right? Like we know that we take actions in service of the thoughts that we're having. And again, we may not always have the most, I'll say, skillful way of being able to present it, but maybe it's because there are some people who are protecting themselves. And it's the way that they're protecting their heart because they don't want to be hurt. So maybe they lash out. And maybe they're protecting themselves or protecting another because they don't want to be it takes a lot of courage to be open and vulnerable. It takes a lot of courage to say, I don't know. And it takes a lot of courage to say, I did wrong. And it takes a lot of courage to be able to be vulnerable with other people, knowing that you are the only one who actually has to be okay with you, that you are the one in the end that is freeing yourself from the burden of holding on to these hot coals. Something that I would actually love to do if you'd love to practice this is whenever you would love to find time for yourself, whether it be in meditation or whether it just be walking down the street or whether it be in the wee hours of the morning, you can ask yourself, who or what can I forgive today? And just pay attention to your thoughts because there is always something that we can forgive, whether it be ourselves, whether it be someone else, that, and just wait for it to come up because your higher self knows, you know, that if there's something that you've been holding on to, that you can actually free up so much energy and space for yourself just by letting it go. And it is so freeing and letting it go again. Because sometimes you may forgive someone, say, yeah, 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 I forgive you. But then what if you say, yeah, 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 I forgive you? Okay, yeah, I forgive you. Okay, I forgive you. And you're like, I forgive you. You can feel the energy shift and it may take years to, because there are some things that I realize I've been holding on to for years, whether it be myself, how I've shown up for myself or other people, whether it be other people towards me and how I think that they or expected them to show up. Every single time, sometimes it felt like gritting my teeth and say, I forgive you. And I'm doing my best to forgive you. I'm trying to forgive you. And because I know that forgiveness is just for me, that I don't feel like holding on to it anymore. And offer it to yourself as well. That when you ask yourself, who or what can I forgive today? And sometimes I'll imagine either myself or I'll like close my eyes and I'll imagine the people in front of me and maybe there are chains around them. Sometimes I imagine these chains, or maybe they're in a cell, and I imagine having the key. And maybe I'm unlocking them and I'm having a conversation and dialogue with them. You don't actually have to forgive the person like straight up. They don't even have to be in your life anymore. They may not even be alive anymore, but it's still the feeling of holding on to it that we can let go of. So, whether it be myself or someone else, and feel free to offer this in your practice as well, whether it be like a minute, 5 minutes, maybe it's a whole hour of just forgiveness. Kudos to you if you do that. But it doesn't have to be huge. It can just be, I recognize where I would love to let go. I forgive you for how you may have shown up, and I forgive myself for holding on to this. I choose to let go of that, and I choose to let go of how you have shown up. I want only the best for myself. And at the same time, I only want the best for you. May you live a beautiful and amazing and vibrant life. May I live an even more amazing and vibrant life. May the past be behind us. May the future be only even more abundant for both of us. Because just as I know I want love in my life, I know that you want love in your life. And may we go separate paths, or may we meet up sometime and know that all is well. In any sort of words that you would love, but wishing someone well is wishing yourself well. Because if we know that we're all connected energetically, spiritually, or just like, the carbon forms that we're made out of, we're all connected on this material world in one form or another. So if we know that we're sending forgiveness and love out, again, that's energy. We're sending it out like a cell tower and we're receiving it from our magnetic heart. So as you're sending out forgiveness, forgiveness from others actually comes back. But even if it doesn't come back in the same way, that just as you know that you want to be loved and forgiven for your past mistakes, that you can send that back to yourself too. That any judgment for others is only judgment back on yourself. That any resentment for others is just resentment back on yourself. So as you're able to recognize and see others in a different perspective, you're also able to see yourself as well. in a different view. And it is beautiful for our transformation to know and honor and take back our power, take back the fact that if I can choose to let go of lower frequency thoughts in order to regain and to amplify the love that I seek in my life tenfold, just by letting go of something that may have seemed really huge in the beginning, but can be just a moment in time, knowing that you are different and so probably are they. Thank you guys so much for sitting down with me today. It is such a great time to be alive. I am feeling amped up and so excited about being able to just love and honor myself for all the forgiveness that I've been doing. And I hope that you guys love and honor yourself for all the forgiveness that you guys are doing as well. Because I think that when we're able to offer each other and ourselves far more love and appreciation for the fact that we're just here to experience, and that one day we will be really grateful when others do the same for us. But I trust, hope, and expect that you guys are all going to have the most impeccable day. I wish you well. I wish you the most abundant and peaceful life that you can have. And for those who would love to subscribe to the YouTube channel that this is on, or the Spotify this is on, the Apple podcast that this is on, thank you so much. And please look forward to a coming workbook that is going to be something more generalized for helping with daily life and structuring and being able to put our energy into stuff that helps forward our life, but also for a workbook that will be coming out eventually in something that helps with dream building, with being able to take a really handy look at our health, relationships, time and money, freedom, and our vocation, and be very clear and concise and absolutely positively empowered to know that we are the directors of our life. So stay tuned for that. For those who would love to support me and my Patreon, I have created one of those, and I'm super excited for all of the people who are already a part of my life and being able to help Perfectly Powerfully You grow even more, because I'm really jazzy about all of the coming things that I would love to present all to you guys for just developing and empowering ourselves. Until then, I hope you guys have a super fantastic day, and I look forward to talking with you all very soon. Thank you all for joining me today, because it's my absolute pleasure to be here with you. I'd love to hear your thoughts about today's content and any inspirational words of wisdom you'd love to share. I'd also love if you would leave a 5-star review on whatever platform it is you're listening to this on, because it helps in creating even more awesome content. May your day be filled with only love and light, and I look forward to talking with you all real soon.